Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The reason you're not seeing me light up the cigar and cut it like I normally am is because I already recorded this fucking video, but did so without sound. Because my computer decided that the very moment that I needed my microphone to work, it would switch to like my graphics card or something that doesn't even have a microphone. Ugh. Technology irritates me sometimes. Anyway, the fourth and presumably final installment of John Wick, finally out. Took a little while. It was scheduled to come out 2 years ago or something, but it's finally here. Thank Christ. And I'm really glad that it is. I would contend that the enjoyment of some ridiculous violence every now and again, nothing to be ashamed of, especially in movies. Humans are wired to find violence cathartic. Why do you think we had the Colosseum in ancient Rome? It's macabre, but it's what happens. And it's just the way we're wired. A director bearing his soul in a given project and just poking and prodding the intellect at every turn is all well and good. I love that kind of shit. But you know what? Sometimes you just want to see some bodies hit the floor. And friends, if catharsis is what you want, watching Keanu Reeves beat the absolute three-bean shit out of 400 people is about as good as you get. So, the majority of this video will be dedicated, of course, to the newest installment, because that's what everybody wants to know is good. But I'd also like to do a quick revisit of the previous three. I did cover them on the Instagram page, but I didn't really love my coverage of those. It was perhaps a little overzealous of me to think I could completely cover 3 whole movies given the limited character count of an Instagram comment. But I tried to do it anyway because I didn't really want to do a full series. In retrospect, that's what I should have done, but it happens. Hindsight is 2020. You also will likely notice that the format of this video is a little different. My last episode did not get a whole lot of views, and I think it's for a couple reasons. For one thing, I think the thumbnail wasn't awesome, but for another, I think that my videos just don't look very good. My webcam tries its best, but I don't think it was really designed to take up an entire video's worth of screen space. It just, for whatever reason, I can't get the aspect ratio to change, and it's 1080p, and it's fine, it works, but it just looks a little gross when I have nothing but me up there. So instead, I'm going to try and add something for the people that actually watch my videos rather than just listen to them. It'll still be kind of visual white noise, but I figured why not? And video games seem the obvious choice because I'm here at my computer already. And I've been known to enjoy a good game every now and again. I'd say my first love is movies. My second love is writing. My third is breakfast food. My fourth is chess. And my fifth is probably video games. I love a good game. Gives my hands something to do. And I'll sometimes do what I like to call power relaxation if I've had a stressful week or something. where I'll have a movie on one screen, a video game on the other, and I'll just consume media like a madman. So today, we'll be playing a little bit of Into the Breach. I chose this game for the video for a couple reasons. For one thing, it's a really solid isometric turn-based strategy type game. A lot of fun if you get a chance to play it. And for another reason, it's really easy to play one-handed. So I can still have my cigar and delicious alcohol. And that works as a nice segue into what we have for today. It was a little more evident earlier when I filmed the video the first fucking time. God damn it. But today's alcohol is the lovely Maker's Mark Kentucky Straight Bourbon. The one good thing Kentucky is good for is whiskey. I'm having this in honor of John Wick because bourbon is his drink of choice in the movies, and I figured I might as well do the same. Going with it is a lovely Gran Habano cigar. This was the first time I've tried one. Major tasting notes include it's sort of a peppery, very earthy, heavy notes of cedar. It's a Corojo cigar rather than a Maduro, and Corojos tend to be a little heavier. Definitely a more evening thing to have with a stronger alcohol. The Maker's Mark has tasting notes of bourbon. I'll let you guys in on a little secret. I don't actually know that much about whiskey. If you couldn't already tell. I just really enjoy it. I know it tastes good. But never discount the opinion of an amateur, because amateur actually comes from the Latin word for lover, amator, and the word was initially intended to indicate somebody that performs a task not out of expertise in it per se, but out of pure molten love of it. So in my admittedly amateur opinion, Maker's Mark has heavy notes of citrus, bit of vanilla in there, and some oak. I tend to like my bourbon colder than I like my scotch, just because of where the heat hits you on each swallow. So scotch tends to hit you early and then goes down easier, so having it neat is perfectly fine in my opinion. But bourbon is flipped, so it goes easy into the mouth and then burns a little more going down, so I tend to like mine on the rocks. But because I don't want it to dilute, I have these nifty little spherical ice molds. It was much bigger earlier. But they're pretty neat. The whole idea is that the spherical shape means that there's a less surface area touching the whiskey at any given time. So it dilutes, or it melts a lot faster, slower. Melts slower, that's what I was saying. And this is a good pairing because generally with cigars and whiskey, you want them to cut each other. You want the tobacco to be strong enough to cut the whiskey. You want the whiskey to be strong enough to cut the cigar. And this accomplishes that. Let's see. Is that everything I wanted to cover? Oh, I had a... Shoot, where'd I set it? Did I leave it out front? I wanted to thank my Master Sergeant Bearer, gave me a gift for my reviews, a little, it's an ashtray from an old Huey. Probably will give me tetanus if I use it. And I think I left it in the other room. But it's really cool. Thank you for it, Master Sergeant. I'll definitely use it here in the future. Tetanus shots be damned. Okay, so moving on. Like I said, I'm gonna just be giving a little something for to keep you visually occupied. I think this is a really solid game. The idea behind it is there's like an alien invasion of sorts, and each level is a set of tiles, and you have to kill the aliens without damaging your civilian people. This otherwise your power grid, this little bar up here, goes down, and if it completely depletes, the game's over. It's either a roguelite or a roguelike. I don't know the term. I always get those confused, but basically each run is disconnected from each other, and you get slight upgrades that make you better each time. And it's a good time, so I'll have this going in the background as I talk about John Wick. So, like I said, I'm going to go over the first three briefly. A couple of slight spoilers, at least for the first one, but at this point, come on, it came out in 2014. You should have seen it already, and if you didn't, fucking get on that, because it's awesome. So, setup is basically that John Wick himself is a retired assassin type guy. The movie starts out with you not really knowing who this guy is, and by dumb luck, he crosses paths with this young Russian mobster type person, and the mobster shows up and kills this dog that his wife bought him before she died, and steals his car and shit, beats him up, does some pretty lowball crap to him, and he brings the car, the mobster brings the car to this other underground character that owns a chop shop. And the owner of this chop shop, I'm explaining this part of this, the plot, because I think this is literally one of the finest scenes in action movies, period, for storytelling efficiency. The owner of the chop shop recognizes the car, and when the mobster explains where he got it, the owner smacks him upside the head. And we know from context that this Russian mobster guy is a dude with whom you don't fuck around, right? because he just did all this stuff to John Wick. And so the guy calls his dad, and by the giant penthouse apartment, the nice suit, and the general, like, evil guy vibe, you know from context not to mess with this guy. So it's a dude with whom you obviously don't want to screw around. That is directly what's the word? He's being direct relationship with, so two people that you don't screw around with, and the dad calls the owner of this chop shop and is like, and asks him to explain why he struck his son. And in a very matter-of-fact tone, the owner explains, well, killed John Wick's car, or he killed John Wick's dog and stole his car. And the father of the guy you don't fuck around with, which by extension is also a guy with whom you don't fuck around, just says, oh. Takes it in stride and hangs up the phone. From that, the audience knows so much it actually boggles the mind. I can't express how enjoyable that scene was. He pretty much, the amount that the audience knows from that alone is so incredible to me. This all happens in like 5 minutes. We know that John Wick is the kind of guy that really intense dudes are, terrified by. And I think that was just really interesting how they ended up doing that. And I think that's like, that encapsulates this movie for me. The John Wick series, if you tried to develop an opinion about John Wick, like purely from the trailers, let's say, and you tried to establish whether it was a good movie based on those merits alone, I think I think you would probably come to the same conclusion that I did at first, which is you would say, this movie is going to be so dumb, it turns people into anti-vaxxers just by the mere act of watching it. This movie is going to be a beautiful blonde at the end of the bar who is clearly good looking and great for an interesting conversation or two, but is a little overconfident in her statement that her Tesla needs an oil change or something. It's just not going to be that smart. It's not going to have that much going on under the surface. But that assumption, that look to the movie, is smoke and mirrors. It's the little design that the barista draws in the foam on your latte. But once you really, if you sink your teeth into this movie, it actually has a little bit more going on. And I really enjoy it. It has it just has so much personality, for one thing, but it also it has a real talent for world building that you wouldn't think about, on top of just really great action, as I'm sure you were expecting from a movie like this, but the the big thing is that what it does really well on top of that action is it very interestingly like alludes to this big world just under the surface, which I think is pretty cool. Um, the For instance, like John Wick himself, like I said, is his whole thing is that he used to be one of the greatest assassins in the world, one of the most dangerous people. Hence the reason why these really don't mess around guys are afraid of him. And he left. He left because of his wife, and the he left because of his wife, and he belongs to sort of this secret society of assassins that exist just under the surface in New York City. And there's this palpable sense that the audience never truly knows the complete reach of that secret society. And I think that's a really, really cool effect that they pull off really rather well. And I'd say even like for the first full 3 movies, the audience never really knows the full extent of what's going on under the hood until probably the 4th movie, which is when I think it all really gets revealed. Um, and so the general like synopsis of these movies is basically that the first one, John Wick, comes back pretty much to mess up. He comes back into the fold to mess up the dudes that messed him up. And then the second one is by doing that, he prompts sort of a shady guy to whom he kind of pledged a favor to cash in on said favor. And then to get out of that, he ends up breaking a cardinal rule of this underground society of assassins and is thus forced to go on the run and is kind of hopscotching between his few remaining allies around the world on these sort of Hail Mary passes. And then the final movie is him figuring out a kind of loophole in the bylaws of the whole thing that allows him to finally get out of the whole obligation. And I'm gonna have to. Where did I put my? I had a lighter here. I gotta relight this thing. So that's the setup for all 4 movies. And let me tell you, making sequels to a movie like this has got to be one of the most difficult tasks on planet Earth. Pound for pound. Because I think, and it's indicative of a larger problem in the film scene itself, where producers have a faulty understanding of creativity, and because they think they see a movie like this that is successful sort of in spite of expectations. People don't really think it's going to be all that great, but it ends up being pretty damn good anyway. And people really enjoy it. So they figure, let's make some more money, and they demand more material from the original creators, completely heedless of the fact that the originality is what made the first installment great. And this happens all over the place. Like, let me think of an example. Like the Star Wars prequels or something, where it's like the originality is what made those first movies so great, and then like with this new Disney the new Disney trilogy sucked ass to a degree that's almost worrying. And you wonder why, if they had the same source material, where's the collapse, especially with all that money? And it's because you can't repeat novelty. It's paradoxical in and of itself. It's a futile effort, but at least Sisyphus was getting his cardio in. And but what was interesting about this movie is it actually made good sequels. Which, again, for a lightning strikes, out of the blue action movie, that never happens. Shittiness in that sphere of the movie industry happens with such a startling regularity. It's like free market crashes or homophobic senators being caught in the midst of a 20-man gay orgy. Happens all the time. But these ones are good, I think, because of a shift in directorial focus. So what they understand is that John Wick himself is pretty much arced out from the word go. Like, at least by the end of the first movie. John Wick himself, great assassin, leaves the life because of his wife. And then leaves the life because of his wife, and then comes back for revenge, and that's pretty much it. That's as far as that character is really capable of going, if you think about it. So instead, what they do is they focus on that vast network of assassins under the surface that they were alluding to in the first one. And I think that's what really, really sells the whole experience. Because they start to uncover it, and as you begin to discover the full weight of it all, that's where the real strength of the movie comes in. So yeah, the sequels end up really being quite good, and the action never really loses its luster. Again, really difficult to do. Like, it's exciting every time. And I've watched these movies a lot. It's exciting every time I see it. And it never ceases to amaze me, that fact. But I'd say it's absolutely true. So, on to the fourth movie. Like, why is it especially good? For one thing, it's really long for movies of this type. Action movies that are supposed to be kind of jam-packed from start to finish tend to hover around that 90-minute range, just because, you know, heavy visual focus means that they don't want to, you know, they want to keep it pretty condensed, if you can, which is smart. But this one is pretty long and is able to really keep the energy up the whole time, which deserves a lot of kudos. And I'd say that all the characters are pretty solid. The one major complaint for the whole series, I'd probably say, is dialogue. That's kind of the one chink in the armor. And I'd say that is still certainly present here. There's also quite a few side characters where there's so many that there's not really time enough to develop them all. But again, this stuff is pretty minimal. I wouldn't say any of it is a deal breaker. And also, this final movie has Donnie Yen, and I love Donnie Yen. Oh, shit. Didn't realize my webcam got bumped. Hopefully that didn't happen for too long. Whoops. Hopefully the video is still salvageable. I'm not filming this shit a third time. But yes, Donnie Yen. I'm trying to think of some places you might know him from. Um, one big one is he was most famous starting out for for Ip Man. Um, he also did Hero. A lot of those Chinese martial arts movies. That was kind of where he got his main start. He was also the the blind guy in that Star Wars movie, Rogue One. The one of the very few, really quite surprisingly good uh, newer Star Wars movies, and he's known for excellent fight choreography, and it's just a lot of fun seeing him beat the shit out of people. And but yeah, all around it's just solid. It doesn't lose any of the initial luster that this kind of thing had, um, which is hard to do at the best of times. And so the original series I gave an 8 out of 10, I believe. And I would absolutely say that rating holds true. It's a perfect rating for it. It's one of those movies that's smarter than it looks, has some decent world building, and really sets a standard for action movies, in my opinion. I'd say that is exactly what I want from a decent action movie. And yeah, I'm sad to see the series go. I'm told we might in the future get a spin-off called The Ballerina with Ana de Armas, which would be really cool because I like Ana de Armas. And she hasn't had a lot of time in the action sphere, but she had that little scene in the new James Bond movie, No Time to Die. Bad movie, but her part in it was really cool. So hey, if we got a little series with her, I'd be all over it. Especially if we can get that same flavor of John Wick excellence. So yeah, 8 out of 10 for the movie and the series at large. Good action tied together by a solid baseline plot. Even though John Wick, by the end of the fourth movie, is basically just a mannequin that's really good at shooting stuff. The directing does a nice job of pushing the focus more to the world around him, the system in which he's an unwitting cog. And even though the final movies do kind of lean towards ridiculousness, that original, the realism that was enjoyed in the original does start to fade as John Wick, the amazing ribless man, tanks, being blindsided by car after car and falls off of 3-story building after 3-story building. It gets a little silly where you have to kind of suspend your disbelief as some dude gets absolutely he gets absolutely trashed again and again, but still keeps walking. Any normal man would have his bones turned to soup by the end of like the first 15 minutes of that movie. But it's still a lot of fun. I don't know what you guys think about this new format for the videos, if you like the sort of background visual white noise. The first time I filmed this, I was pausing a lot more because I was getting a little distracted, but now I think I'm getting the hang of it. So yeah, if you do like that, let me know. If you don't, also let me know. I'm taking the LSAT here soon, so I don't know if I will have the opportunity to film another video for a little bit. But we'll see. The gaps between these do grow a little bit because life is busy, but that happens. And then, yeah, I think that's everything. Keep giving me recommendations. I've enjoyed receiving those. The channel, of course, is still in its relative infancy. Next time I might play a little chess and expose how bad I am at it, despite enjoying it. And I believe that is everything. I will see you all next time. Have an excellent evening.